Hi everyone, welcome to your last week of class. I'm so excited for you to have a nice relaxing break. You certainly deserve it after all of your great work this semester. As I told you during our conferences, the purpose of this video is to talk you through the final components that you'll add to complete your formal report and then turn it in on Friday. So before I begin talking through the content, please pause this video and pull up the most recent draft of your report. I'm going to ask you to add some pages and take some notes in it as we work through this video. Once you have your report pulled up, I'd like to start by reminding you that this page is one of the content pages. So remember, if you go to content here, along the left-hand side is the navigation we've been using to get to a lot of our resources this semester, and the research resources page is on the very bottom of that list. One thing that I want to mention to you is that it has the sample reports in it, which contain the components that I'm going to talk about as part of the checklist that you'll work through today. The page that you're reviewing as your last content page this week is this Finalizing Your Report page, along with revising the content of your report, mostly the data section and the recommendations, based on the feedback you got in our conference and the things that you knew you needed to do anyway. This part of the work will also allow you to work through all of the parts you add around the intro data section and conclusion of your report. So if you have a copy of your draft pulled up, I'd like to walk you through those components that you need to add to finish building out your report. This checklist is included on that module, that Finalizing Your Report module I just showed you. So page 1 of your report is going to be the letter of transmittal. So go ahead and clear out page 1 of your report, label it letter of transmittal, and then take a few notes as I talk about the purpose of that document. The letter of transmittal is the first thing that your audience will see when they pick up your report. You should choose someone to write to that actually represents the audience of your report. So if you are writing to environmental policymakers, you should pick an actual person that sets environmental policy in Washington, D.C. or in Colorado and write to that actual person with their actual address. If you're writing to student athletes, you should choose a student athlete that you know and address your letter to that person. As you can see from this example report here, this student was writing to athletic trainers and coaches for college football teams, and so he chose to write to the director of athletics and the head football coach at Fort Lewis. You'll see he actually addressed his letter to those people and talked to them in the letter about the content of his report. The letter is a way for you to get to talk about the work that you did in your report and to draw your readers' attention to the parts that might be most important or impactful or interesting to them. You can also, in your letter, if you'd like to, talk about your own personal stake in the topic and why you chose to research it. You can see that in this concussions paper that Jamie wrote about how he plays football and why he chose to write about this topic because he is a student athlete that's impacted by concussions in football. So page 1, letter of transmittal to an actual person who represents the audience that you're writing to in your report. Page 2, go ahead and scroll down there. Clear out a page for your title page if you don't have one already. The title page is just simple APA format. If I scroll down here in Jamie's report, you'll see his title, his name, and then the name of the institution. Okay, so page 1, letter of transmittal, page 2, title page. Page 3, if you scroll down to that now, in your document, go ahead and clear out page 3 and label it Table of Contents. This is a place for you to provide your reader with a way to navigate the sections of your paper and see what the main topics are that you've covered there. If you are already including headings and subheadings in the document in your analytical report, those headings and subheadings will easily pull up into your table of contents as labels for the specific parts of your paper. If you haven't included headings and subheadings in your paper, I'd highly encourage you to do that as one of the next steps in your revision process. Okay, so here we're on page 3. So far we have our letter, we have our title page, and then we have our table of contents. Page 4 is your abstract. And one of the pieces of content on our content page that you're reading for today is some instructions about how to write an abstract. If you scroll down here, it gives you some instruction about how to do that. Please remember that all of our sample reports also have abstracts in them that you can use as examples. Here's Jamie's here. The way that I would recommend writing this is to look at each of the main sections of your report and to write a 1 or 2 sentence summary of each section. Then try to edit those summary sentences to make them one cohesive paragraph. And then finally go back to this instruction here and make sure you've included all of these components in that summary. The motivation, your problem statement, how you approach the topic, what you found out, and what you recommended. Okay, so this is page 4, abstract. Make sure you've cleared out that page. And then finally, the introduction or the text of your report starts on page 5. So you'll see if I scroll down, here's page 5 for Jamie, and here's the introduction of his report. If I go to this checklist here, you'll see that there are a couple of optional things. Most folks do not include a glossary or appendices in their report, but you can if you need them. A glossary is included if you have more than 5 technical terms and you're speaking to a pretty novice audience, so you feel like defining all those terms in your report would be cumbersome, so you want to define them in a glossary instead. Appendices are also optional. This is where you can include additional data or visuals that won't fit in your report, or copies of letters or documents or policies that you don't want to include in your report. So consider appendices a place to put more information that won't fit in your actual report, but that you want to reference in your report and provide to your reader. Again, glossary and appendices are just optional. You do not have to include them. Finally, at the very end is your references list. Many of you have asked me if you need to include annotations in your references list like you did in your annotated bibliography, and the answer is no. You should just include the regular list of sources without any annotations underneath them. Also remember that you'll probably need to include additional sources above and beyond the ones that you had in your annotated bibliography. Between 10 and 20 sources are more typical in the analytical report rather than just the 6 that you had in your annotated bib. Finally, as you're finishing up, the last part of this module here that you're reviewing today is a reminder about writing a really strong recommendation section. I can't emphasize enough how much the recommendation section plays in the success of your analytical report. That section really needs to be the culmination of your report, not just a conclusion or a typical summary, but instead you're really giving us steps for action and telling us how we can take that action. So if you're telling me that I should start an exercise program, you're going to give me the details of that exercise program in this section. If you're telling me I should vote for a certain type of policy to protect the environment, you're going to give me links to go read examples of those types of policies, contact information for legislators that support those policies, criteria for how to evaluate whether I should vote for someone based on whether they support those types of policies. You're giving me all the information I need to start taking action from what you've given me in your recommendation section. So this is a really important place where you might consider going back to that analytical report resources page and looking at a few examples from other students that will show you how they have approached their recommendations section. I did have, which I don't anymore, this ultra running example is a really great example of a report that has a really detailed recommendation section. So this one I would recommend looking at in particular. You'll see that she has a training plan down here in her report, and this training plan is actually her recommendations, and it spans several pages, 4 or 5 pages, because she's giving details, not just that we need to run every week, but she's telling me how to run every week. Not just that I need to eat healthy, but she's telling me what types of food I need to eat if I'm a woman training for an ultramarathon. So keep working on your recommendation section, add the details that you need to make it really strong, and please let me know if I can help you finish up your recommendations and take a look at it, or look at any other component of your report while you finish revising this week.